Welcome to the show. This is JJ Flazanes. Thank you so much for downloading today's episode. Today's episode is a conversation between Doug and I and Michael Houlihan and Bonnie Harvey, who are the founders of Barefoot Wine. And we were invited up to their home in Sonoma in wine country and spent the weekend with them. And the fun thing about this conversation, which is a little bit longer than some of the other shows, but it's hard to pare down when you've got four people talking. And Michael's definitely a talker, and Bonnie enjoys these kinds of conversations. And we were all sitting around in robes, actually. We had our pajamas on underneath, and then we all had robes. They provided robes and slippers for our brunch in the morning. So we had a robed brunch with a mimosa, and then we sat down to record the show. So you might hear a little bit of clanking. There wasn't too much drinking going on, but I did want to do a little bit of an intro here to tell you a little bit more about them on a professional level. As founders of the iconic Barefoot Wine brand, eventually acquired by E&J Gallo, Michael Houlihan and Bonnie Harvey are two of the most highly sought-after workshop leaders, keynote speakers, and interview guests on business and executive topics. The two routinely appear on radio, podcasts, and television outlets including ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and Bloomberg, and are frequently quoted and interviewed on professional and national publications including Forbes, Entrepreneur, The Huffington Post, Amex Open Forum, and Costco Connection. Their bi-monthly business articles are published by the business journals in 43 cities and are advisors and contributing editors to the C-Suite network. Michael and Bonnie speak internationally for corporations, conferences, universities, and symposiums, including SOCAP, Society of Consumer Affairs Professionals in Business, the World Conference on Entrepreneurship in Dublin, Ireland, the Conference Board's Consumer Experience Symposium in New York City, the C-Suite conferences, Persistent Systems, Liberty Tax, Retail Packaging Association, Renaissance Executive Forums, and over 60 universities that teach entrepreneurship. And since they sold Barefoot, they've actually written two books, The Barefoot Spirit and The Entrepreneurial Culture, which we'll talk about at the end of today's show. So I hope you enjoy today's show. Welcome to Women, Men, and Relationships. I'm JJ Flazanes.
I guess that would make me Doug Sandler, right?
Most of the time it does. We had that conversation in Santa Fe that sometimes it doesn't make you Doug Sandler. How you didn't want to come back as an aunt. Remember that conversation we had in our hotel room? Today's show, let's talk about how interesting today's show is going to be.
Oh, I love this because, we are in a picturesque setting here. We're at Bonnie Harvey and Michael Houlihan's house. Actually, this is the first time we've ever been included in anybody's house that hasn't kicked us out in like 12 hours.
And Doug's right, it is picturesque and it is amazing. And today's show, The 7 Rules for Couples, we're going to spin this mostly for couples in business, but hold up, don't tune out. Most of you don't realize that your homes are like a business. You have to budget, you have to organize things, there's schedules, and all of these things, if we looked at our family life, our home life, more like a business, I bet you some people would have less fights, you'd get along better, you'd have rules for success. And today we are joined by Michael and Bonnie, who not only have been super successful in business, but they're super successful in their relationship. They've been together for how long have you guys?
36 years.
36 years in business and in a relationship and haven't killed each other and have been successful.
So the important question that I would want to know is, do you do hospital corners or do you kind of just tuck under? And who actually does the making of the bed in the house?
Whoever gets up last.
Good answer. So let's welcome you guys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. We are delighted to be here.
Yeah, fun to be here.
So you have this article that you've written called The 7 Rules for Couples in Business. And the subtitle is Don't Try This at Home. So why do we start out with Don't Try This at Home?
Because most couples may be able to have a relationship that's personal or a relationship that's business without the personal part. But to do both is very difficult. And most couples are unable to do it, which doesn't mean there's anything wrong with either one of you. It just means that you're not suited to be both in business together and have a personal relationship. It's difficult for most couples, and more than difficult, it's impossible.
I think most people like to get away from business, so they go home to their significant other and they say, okay, this is my space. This is a different world. And so, it kind of takes the pressure off their work. But when you're in business with your significant other, then it's 24/7. So that requires a whole different mindset and a different set of rules too.
Guy, let me ask a question, because you guys have been working together for decades. Is it better to be similar or better to be diverse in your thought process?
Having different skill sets, I think, is primary to being successful. And certainly Michael and I qualify in that area. I'm more of a detail person, and Michael is, more of the general looking ahead and seeing the big picture. Because if you have the same skill sets, then you're both trying to do the same job, and you're going to micromanage each other, and that leads to a lot of arguments.
Yeah, it's sort of like you have to look at a relationship in business like it's a team. Who brings what skills to the team? It's just like in baseball. Somebody's a pitcher, somebody's a slugger, somebody's a catcher. So if you got two pitchers, you're not necessarily going to win the game.
So JJ might like this question, but how do you stop from getting your feelings hurt when one in the couple says something and the other couple contradicts what they say? And how do you separate your personal decisions from your business decisions so you don't take it personally?
First of all, if you have the understanding that you both have the same goals for your business or your personal life, and you agree on those things, and if you respect each other and you appreciate differences of opinion, because obviously we can't, as an individual, have all the right answers resulting from the experiences that we've had. So you kind of have to take your blinders off and say, I really want someone else's opinion that I respect and that has the same goals that I have. So then it's not personal. It's a partnership.
It's sort of like if you're both going to the same destination, but you're coming from different places. As long as you know that you're headed for the same destination, you don't have a lot of objection to the fact that maybe somebody's looking at it a little differently. In fact, it might be just what you need to get a more objective look at what you're doing.
Before you guys got together, had you dated other people or been in a relationship with other people that weren't entrepreneurs?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and it was interesting. This is a situation where you're going out and you have your career, and they're going out and they have their career. There's more peace at home, I'll tell you that. You don't have to worry about not bringing business into the home, although you can still come home and say, let me tell you what happened at the office, and now you have to listen to the other person's drama, and then you share your drama. And it's always nice to get that kind of support at home. But when you're both going to the same office and you're suffering the same drama, it's like, I've been there, done that. I remember that guy. Let's talk about the spaghetti.
And I know from your story, you guys had talked about it personally, that the first 2 years were sort of rough, and you'd started your business pretty quickly when you met. And so would you say that within those first 2 years is when you developed sort of these guidelines or rules that sort of set you up for a more structured way of presenting and being with each other, both in relationship and in business?
Well, the first 2 years we were getting to know each other, just like any new relationship, if it's personal or it's business. So we came into a relationship based on our previous experiences. So we had to learn that those weren't necessarily applicable to our new relationship. So that in itself is a real learning curve.
And the other thing is for the first couple of years, you really don't have a lot invested in the relationship. So it's a whole lot easier to just say, forget it, or try it again, or next. But once you've been together for, say, 5 or 10 years, now you have a shared history. And you have shared goals, you have shared pain, you have shared accomplishments. And so consequently, you're bonded by your history. So that's another thing that happens over time.
So, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, something else I wanted to say, although the article that we've written is called 7 Rules for Couples in Business, and it can be in personal life too, rules are kind of a very strict word to be using in this case. What these are is it's 7 ways of living our life and thinking that worked for us. Now, I can't tell you what's going to work for you. You've got to figure out that yourself. But we're very happy to share with your audience and with you right now what worked for us.
So what was great about it is we were having dinner, I think it was last night or maybe the night before on Friday evening when we were talking about the 7 rules. I think we actually came up with the 7 rules because we didn't have the article right in front of us, which is great. So I guess where I would start is chicken or the egg. Are these guidelines or rules or something that you guys put together as you were evolving, or was this something you headed into the relationship with, understanding that these are the 7 things that we think that we're going to need to follow in order to be successful as a couple in business together?
Well, as you proceed together as a couple in business or just domestically, you start to have disagreements. And when you have these disagreements, when you finally, kiss and make up, you're going to say, well, what did we do wrong there? Or how could we have avoided this situation or this misunderstanding? And so that's when these so-called rules started to become established. We said, okay, never again. We're not going to talk about business in the bedroom anymore, because it just ruins the romance. So that's an example that everybody can relate to of a rule that you really got to start thinking about how is my business, affecting my relationship, and what can I do to prevent that from happening again. So you have to actually analyze the circumstances, look at the environment, look at the timing, look at all these different things, and then you just make an agreement with your partner. You say, okay, this is what we're going to do from now on. I mean, do like we do, not like we say, or do like we say, not like we do, because what we've been doing is trying to live up to these rules. We violate the rules more often than not. So, but try to follow our advice.
Well, you come back to I know based upon the at least the interaction that I've seen that you guys have had over the last couple of days, I've seen that you come back to the rules oftentimes. So you're like, oh shit, I broke that rule, and that wasn't not in a derogatory way, but you remember that these are the lessons that I've learned through the years, and because I've learned that lesson, I probably shouldn't be breaking that rule.
Right. Whenever we make a mistake, I say we are in a constant state of improvement. Now, doesn't that feel better than I screwed up?
Oh, absolutely. We're all in a constant evolution of improvement.
I am constantly screwing up. So, JJ, thank you for reminding me of that all the time.
You are not screwing up, and I'm reminding you of that? Okay, anyway, that's a sidebar. So let's get into these 7 rules or suggestions for couples in business, and I'm going to say in life. Where do we start?
Well, we already started with different skill sets. And I think that that's really a primary thing to consider. Now, as I said before, it doesn't always work. In fact, it usually doesn't work. So that's the primary thing to consider. But once you decide that you are going into business together, if it's business or if it's the business of running your household, you're going to have different skill sets, and you have to respect each other, respect the other person for what they're best at.
Can I push back just for a quick second? What if we have somebody that's listening in our community that says, well, geez, my husband and I, or my spouse and I, or my significant other and I, we're both big picture thinkers, so we don't have a details person in between the two of us. Does that mean that, in your opinion, that it's over? They can't do well together in business?
No, but they better hire a good accountant.
Wait, that's a personal story that you guys have, isn't it?
Well, no, it's just that you're more likely to succeed in business with your significant other if you do have skill sets that are complementary. Once you have a duplication of skill sets, then the other person knows enough about your skill set to say things like, well, I wouldn't do it that way. Or, maybe, and now you get into this whole problem of micromanaging. So micromanagement is less likely to occur when you have different skill set. If somebody's a mechanic and you're not going to tell them how to fix the carburetor.
In relationship terms, it would be the power struggle, because it would be probably if you had two people who are very similar in how they dealt with either their household or their business. Now you've got the I'm right, you're wrong power struggle, because there's not that complementary skill sets and lack of respect. I think that's the other competition that happens in relationships, is when you think you're similar enough, you end up competing with each other, and it gets into this stupid power struggle of ego and not into having total respect for the differences.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one of the nice things about different skill sets is it gives you more appreciation for your partner. You say, gee, I really like, in my case, I'm lucky enough to be with a person who is a detail person, who can deal with, the clauses in the contract, the bank statement, legal matters, all of these things, taxes. And I'm so glad that I've got somebody to handle that, because I would really screw it up. So it gives me a lot of appreciation, not just for my significant other, but for the fact that I know that those skills are being looked after.
Also, if you're a couple in a personal relationship and you do have the same skill sets, you can always trade off. You can make decisions. Okay, well, this week I'm going to plan all the meals, go out shopping, prepare the meals just the way I like, and you stay out of the kitchen. Okay, that's fine.
And then the next week we have TV dinners.
So then the person who's the cook might say, I'm going to cook and you will always just pay for the groceries or do the grocery shopping, and I'm going to handle the cooking. Yeah. Now, before we get any further, I want to make sure everyone understands how long you guys have been together.
Well, 36 years, and the last 34 have been great.
Right, as you said.
So that gives us a year still to fuck up before we actually have to be good at what our relationship is, JJ.
And Michael had mentioned about you don't have too much skin in the game. There's not an established. You and I already have business dealings that got established from the moment you moved to California. So we have to sort of propel ourselves forward and learn these lessons a little faster, I think.
And more importantly, thanks for letting me keep my Mustang and my Harley in the garage, because I don't want to have to take those out. So if something happens to us, they got to stay in the garage. So I have to stay with you.
Okay. Well, so more about us later, but as you all know, our crazy saga. So different skill sets, super important. And I think one thing I'm going to highlight that Bonnie and Michael both mentioned is respect. And I think that is a huge piece that a lot of people, just people in general, not even couples, tend to forget, because we focus on what we don't like about other people or what's different about them. And I think when we start to look at what's different in a way of respecting it, in a way of acknowledging it as a complementary piece, you're going to win in any relationship when you don't just judge someone for being different than you, but you actually think, how are they different from me? That's so unique. That's so different. We could actually do things together that I can't do by myself, and have a certain level of respect. So I think entering into any couple with a greater level of acknowledgement and respect is really important.
Can I ask a question? I'm curious about this. Do you feel it was a help or a hindrance that Barefoot Wines was as successful as it was in helping you with your personal relationship? Do you think that it would have been more challenging had there been more adversity in the growth of Barefoot Wines, or do you think that it was okay? Good, I like that.
You're not suggesting that there wasn't difficulty, are you?
Well, okay, so
actually, it was the adversity that drew us together. It's sort of like when you fight the bear and you're able to keep the bear out of the cabin because you're both pushing on the door. Well, that's an adverse situation, but then you look at each other and go, whew.
Okay, so wait, so this is great, because we did talk about a little bit of this a couple of days ago when we were discussing some of the problems that ended up being the wonderful things that drew not only your business to higher heights and you understanding differences about how to grow a business successfully through the adversity, But can you share maybe one of those examples that help bring you guys together a little bit more? I think you had shared several of those from a business perspective that grew your business, like the accountant, the guy that walked in from the tax collector's office, or any number of different stories that you had. I don't know if there's any that come to top of mind for you.
Well, that's always a great story. It's a true story. Bonnie and I had only been in business, for a couple of months, and boom, we win a gold medal at this contest, and we're like thrilled about it. And the people running the contest say, okay, you guys got to get out there and pour on Sunday because we want our attendees to taste all the gold medal wines. So we're out there pouring with the other gold medal wines, and the general public comes in and they're tasting. And finally, this guy comes up out of the general public. He doesn't look like the other people. He's wearing a suit and a tie, and he's rather drab, and he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out a badge and he flashes it in our face, and he says he's from the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, and he says, do you have a license to do this, right? And then what did you say, Bonnie?
I said, well, yes, look, we took a gold medal. They told us we had to pour for the public, and here we are. Would you like to have a taste? So
we wind up, he says, oh, well, you're going to hear from me. And so Bonnie and I are looking at each other like, oh, now what, So then we get this really official notice that says that, we've got to go downtown and meet with the director of the ABC in his office. So we wait around. We're sweating
because we did not have a license to pour for the public.
So he says, okay, here it is. You guys are either going to be shut down for a month or you're going to give me $10,000. That's the fine. So we don't have $10,000 to pay a fine. So now we have to, opt for the being shut down. So now because we're a couple, we're talking about this back and forth, and we're going, how are we going to handle this?
So we thought, well, we'll get pre-orders. It took us a while to come up with that, but we got pre-orders. We said, okay, if you're buying 100 cases a week, every week, why not buy 400 cases? And of course, our buyers said, well, what's the incentive? We said, we're going to lower the price. Oh, okay, then we'll buy 400 cases and get it all for a lower price.
So they were buying in quantity so that we could be closed for a month and still pay our bills. And then something interesting happened. The people in the warehouses of those stores said, hey, you just bought all this Barefoot wine and we don't have any place to put it. You better put it on sale, put it on the floor, and get it advertised so that you can move it out through the stores because we don't have any room here in the warehouse. And so all of a sudden, we've got Barefoot wine on sale, in hundreds of stores, and it's moving fast. So then our 30 days penance is over, and we get our license back, and they come back and they say, hey, can we get that deal again? And so we thought, geez, you guys sold through it pretty fast. Oh, yeah, we had to. We had to put it on sale because we didn't have room in our warehouse. So here's a very adverse situation. Bonnie and I talked it over, and we came up with this idea of selling in bulk. And then the next thing you know, it turns out to be the style that our business takes going forward because we realize if they buy big, they sell big, and they sell fast.
And in terms of your relationship, I'm sure it felt like such a success that you were so proud of yourselves for figuring that out, that made everything really... Now, but as Doug was asking, how was it at the beginning, right before you came up with the idea? Like, what was the stress level like and tension in your relationship before you had the idea to sell in bulk?
We were totally freaked out. We were going, okay, this is the end of the business, right? And it took us a while to really calm down enough to look at it, and, Bonnie said something and then I said something and we had a discussion, and then all of a sudden, boom, we both flashed on this idea of, why don't we just pre-sell a bunch so that we can pay our bills? Because up to that point, we were going, oh my God, we're not going to pay our bills. We're looking at what the negative outcome was going to be of being shut down for a month. And we were hand to mouth in those days. We didn't have enough money to pay our bills. We didn't have any business being in business for that matter. We were just all on borrowed money.
Well, a lot of couples face adversity and don't have sort of the skills or the positivity or the trust or faith in both each other and the process to sort of get over that. And that's one of the things I wanted to bring to today's show, to listen both as a maybe part of a couple or someone who wants to be in a couple or someone who's in a couple and maybe you are in business together. And these skills and these points, these 7 suggested practices or 7 rules, if you will, if when you put it in a different perspective, you can really start to appreciate the trust and faith that you have to have in each other, as well as the resilience to go from freaking out to trusting each other, to taking the risk, and then to having it pay off, and then going, oh my God, like you move to a new level of trust within each other by having it pay off, by seeing it through, by being in it together, by experiencing it together. And of course, that deepens not only your connection, but again, that trust and faith in your relationship to overcome any odd. So we've hit different skill sets. From there, can we move to the next one?
Well, the next one here on my list of rules is positive disagreement, and we have kind of talked a bit about that, which is it's better to have a variety of opinions and resources to look at and to make your final decision. So it's a real benefit to have someone who has different skill sets, who thinks differently than you do. And if you know that you both have the same goals in mind, then this is a real advantage. And that is built on trust. And that was, for us, the first 2 years of our relationship was experiencing a variety of circumstances where we could work together and come up with a positive result. And once we realized that we could work together and that we did have different skill sets and that we did have the ability to disagree without taking it personally and thinking there's something wrong with one or the other of us, then we realized what an advantage it was to be a couple.
Yeah, I think it's really, we call it positive disagreement because, most people think disagreement is negative, but it can be very positive if you know that the person you're disagreeing with knows, loves, and trusts you, and so they're disagreeing with you. You better listen up because they've got your best interests at heart, and they've got the best interests of the community, of the two of you at heart. And so you have to take the attitude that this person is kind of playing devil's advocate, or they're coming at it from a different position, or they're trying to correct me on my own weaknesses because they know me so intimately so that I don't get into this problem. So that's what positive disagreement's all about.
I think that should be a rule for all families, right? Because don't most families, I have had family experience of drama and disownment and breaking up because someone disagreed. Like, what an amazing skill set for everyone to learn how to positively disagree.
I'm thinking back to a couple of relationships that I had before entering into not only a personal relationship with you, JJ, but a business relationship as well. And it's like my first relationship, my first major relationship in my life, which was with my first wife, the mother of my 2 kids. It was more that she was working for me. So, and not in a derogatory way, but she was sales, she was customer service. She let me to be a big picture person. She did a lot of the details, but it was like, okay, I'm running this business, and can you do this for me, or can you do this for the business? The second relationship, there was a lot of power struggle. Second major relationship that I got into, a lot of power struggle. I find that with this kind of relationship, do you feel between you and I, we have a very 50-50 partnership in this, where I understand, you understand, we agree to disagree sometimes, and we make decisions based upon that. Michael and Bonnie, how do you feel like, and I know this is one of the things that's on your list also that we talked about a couple of nights ago, was how do you feel about the importance of having a 51-49% relationship or a 50-50 relationship where you're actually bringing in a third party to help make some decisions that are maybe challenging for you two to make as two strong people? Because both of you have very strong personalities, and I would imagine you'd go up head-to-head against people. So talk about maybe the idea of bringing in that third party to help make some other decisions.
Well, that is one of the tactics that worked for us to be successful. If we couldn't agree, we would bring in a third-party expert. First of all, we do have skills that we're good at, but even between the two of us, we're not good at everything. So we say, do what you do best and delegate the rest. So if there's another, if we're unable to decide, or we realize that we just don't have the experience and the expertise required to make a decision about something, then we'll start talking to other people that have had more experience in that area than we have. And not that we take their answer, but we use that to discuss and to come up with an answer on our own.
And, this really brings up one of the other points, too, that, is one of the rules, so to speak, quote unquote. And that is when the other person has an opinion that's different than you and you're disagreeing, you really need to come to a unanimous decision before you move forward. You don't want the other person to say, I told you so. Now, Bonnie and I have made unanimous decisions that were wrong, but neither one of us could say, I told you so. We both looked at each other and said, okay, I guess we've got to learn that lesson, or we better write that down, or we better watch out for that when it happens next time. And so that's another reason why you want to have unanimous decisions. And if you can't reach those unanimous decisions, yes, bring in the expert for enlightenment and whatnot. As many skill sets as the both of you bring into the relationship, there are skill sets that you need in business that you just don't have, even the two of you. So don't get the idea that you've got everything necessary to conduct a business. You may have to bring in that expert.
I think a lot of couples fight about money, and most couples would really benefit from bringing in a tax and money expert to help them look at their situation, play mediator, and to bring it down to a numbers and not an emotionally heated situation. I mean, that's a scenario where I think a lot of people who aren't in business together need to look outside of themselves to areas where they are not experts, and someone who can actually see both sides. It's not about a heated argument. It's about numbers, and when you get down to it, that's why a lot of couples break up, right? Is because of money, and they're not seeking more information than they already have.
I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that Bonnie and I did is, you don't want to have a different person doing your taxes every year. You want to have the same person doing your taxes, and ideally, you want to work with a CPA or an accountant. You also don't want to just meet with them when it's tax time. You want to meet with them like 3 or 4 or 5 times during the year. And the reason you do is because that person has witnessed other couples, other businesses go through problems that are just like yours. And it isn't that he's the expert, but he could be the reporter. He can say, let me tell you what so-and-so did in their business in a similar circumstance. This worked for them. It might work for you. And so that's going to give you some options that you don't have when you don't involve that person.
So this may seem like an obvious answer or an obvious question, but how do you guys find the ability to get, you have all this stuff going on. You have the successful business that you had that you created and sold. You have several other things that you have, a bunch of projects. Again, I've just witnessed in the last few days, just a bunch of things that you do together. How do you guys find time to just kind of pull back from that conversation and talk about the personal things, like, are we going to the farmer's market today, or what are we having for dinner, and without getting so wrapped up in all of the things that happen during the business side of your day as well?
Well, one of the things that we strongly believe in is having off limits, and that's for time and space, physical space. So business off limits, times and spaces. Times being a weekend primarily, or it might be at dinner. Spaces, the number one space where you don't want to have business is in the bedroom. You want to save that for, all the cuddles and the romance. And also another thing that really worked well for us was I learned early on that as a business owner, it's really easy to cancel your vacation time. It is so easy that it happens more often than not. But having that vacation time not only helps keep the romance alive, but it really helps in business. It can clear out your mind, and I tend to get involved in all the little details, and they come up on a daily basis, and I'm putting out fires all the time, and it's very difficult to make long-range plans when all my time is occupied in putting out the fires that come up daily.
So what Bonnie always does is at the beginning of the year, she gets non-refundable tickets. By the way, they're the best price too. So she gets these non-refundable tickets for a 1 or 2 week vacation. It's going to take place 6 or 8 months from now. So now as you proceed toward that date, you're looking forward to it. And anticipation has got to be 50% of the fun anyway. And so because hey, we're going to go to Kauai, we're going to take a week off, we're going to run around in the sand, it really takes the pressure off. And the other thing, too, is you have to remember that, and this takes a lot of self-discipline, but after a while in business, you start to realize that there's nothing that is so important that you have to focus on it 24/7. As a matter of fact, you're more likely to come up with a brainstorm conclusion when you're on a hike, when you're in the shower, when you're hanging out in the hot tub, when you're relaxing. Those are the times on a picnic. Those are the times you'll be just not thinking about anything at all. And then boom, your wonderful computer brain will throw you a complete solution. And so you just say, thank you. What if I'd been worrying about that? I would have never gotten in.
There's a saying, it's worry is prayer for what you don't want. And I think that actually is applicable to couples who aren't in business. Let's say you're dealing with a situation with your child, or you're dealing with a situation with your mortgage, or you're dealing with a situation at home. I think the same thing applies, that you can spend time not thinking about it, don't worry, be in alignment, have a good time, and boom, your subconscious gives you the answer, your higher self gives you the answer. So I think that applies also not only in business, but separate from business.
Can we talk for just a quick second just about goal setting, because I think, or intention setting, or whatever you want to call it as a couple, because we chatted again. I come back to that dinner that we had on Friday evening, and there was so many great little nuggets of information that I pulled from that dinner, and one of them was this discussion about this journal that you have. And those that are in our community, I know JJ and I have talked about this many times, this practice that we do, May McCarthy, her practice of teaching us how to keep a journal and how to visualize and how to do a number of things. But you had a slightly different practice that you actually do, and not that May's is the only one. You have your own. So can you maybe share just a couple of little bits of information about this journal that you keep in the different categories? Because I love the categories that you were working with.
We've been keeping what we call a goal book, and it's a 3-ring binder, so we write in it manually. And we like to write in it on a weekly basis and do whenever we can. And we revise our goals annually, but they're always in 5 categories. There's spirit, health, wealth, home, and social. So those are our categories that we write in. And we write down our goals, and sometimes the goals are it's a lifestyle. It's not something that you can check off, like a new roof on the house, But it's a way of living, and it just brings up the good principles that we've learned or that we've taken from other people, and we write them down, and we can look at them and say, okay, well, maybe we've been not spending enough time in our diet in this particular aspect, and we need to improve on it. So because it's in writing and we can look at it and say that that's our goal, it helps remind us and focus us on what it is that we really want out of our lives.
And Bonnie and I, we're hikers. We're great hikers. We're blessed to live in Northern California, so we have lots of trails here in the Pacific Mountain Range, and we've got the Russian River Valley and everything. So we go for a hike. We sit down for a picnic. We pull out the goal book, and we go through each one of these categories. Now, we write down the things that have happened that are kind of like achievements or milestones that are on their way to the achievement of one of these goals. Now, some weeks we don't have any achievements at all, and so we don't have an entry for that one. But what we do then is we go back and we reread the entries that we put in before, because it can get frustrating, especially in business and in life. You think, well, I don't know if I'm making any, progress toward my goal. It seems like it's the sore thumb, and, it's only 1 out of 9 fingers. So let's take a look at the other 9 fingers, and you do, and you say, oh, look at this. We moved ahead here. We moved ahead here. Things aren't so bad. bad. We're making progress. And so that kind of cheers you up and gives you the kind of encouragement that you need to remain tenacious and see your goal through.
So with that in mind, the progress thing and the frequency that you're at when you're able to see some progress and you have a more positive attitude about it. Talk a little bit about maybe how having a positive attitude, and I know this might sound obvious, but there's so many people that are in our community and so many people that I know personally that live a woe is me kind of life, and when you're a woe is me kind of person, you're going to attract more woe. So talk about for a second how success has kind of been pushed along in your case through this law of attraction, and you're getting out exactly what you're getting out of life exactly what you're putting into it.
Well, you're always going to find what it is you're looking for. So what do you have your eyes open for? So if something goes wrong, quote unquote, like we were busted for not having a license, to pour for the general public, we learned a big lesson out of it. We didn't just go, oh my God, we're never going to make it, for very long anyway. But we said, what can we do about it? So if there's a mistake made, we really believe in making some kind of a change. Okay, if we've got a problem, we say, how can we change something to make this problem less likely to happen again? So instead of just wallowing in the gutter of misery because something horrible happened, you look to see where's the lesson, because mistakes are always made. It's part of learning. You're not going to learn anything unless you make some mistakes and find out what doesn't work. So you go, oh, this is great. Now I know another way that this doesn't work. Okay.
That's Edison's philosophy. In 9,999 ways, the light bulb doesn't work.
So say you're looking for your keys. You're on your way to work, you're running late, and you can't find your keys to your car. And so you start panicking and you say, oh my God, I'll probably have to look through everything. I'll have to look through the whole house to find my keys, and then I'll be late for work. So you go where the keys are supposed to be. You open the drawer, they're not there. Okay, you go look in your raincoat pocket, they're not there. You go to the kitchen, they're not there. You go to the bathroom, they're not there. Then you stop and you go back to the first drawer where the keys are, and you're going to look a little harder. The keys are right there. Why didn't you see the keys when you looked in the drawer in the first place? It's because you already set yourself up to not see the keys. You said, I'm probably going to look everywhere and I'm going to be late for work. See? And so this is kind of like what happens in life. If you have a positive attitude, you're looking for solutions. If you are not looking for solutions, a solution may present itself right in your face and you don't see it because it's disguised as something else. It might even be disguised as a setback, like somebody shutting you down because you don't have a license, and boom, you learn how to sell in large quantities and increase your business tremendously. So, you have to be looking for solutions and not for problems, not for reasons that you can't make it, but reasons you can. And one of the things that I like about being in business with a couple is you get the reinforcement, because if you're positive and they're positive, it really makes a difference, because tenacity is really fueled by acknowledgement and encouragement.
I think that's an important factor for all relationships, especially ones in business, because if you have someone who definitely doesn't really believe it's possible and who kind of carries that negative vibration, if you will, negative feeling, then the other person's always trying to prove to them that you can, versus both of you working towards a solution. It's more about trying to prove to each other than actually trying to solve the greater problem, which both people really would be best at being on board about. Now, I know a lot of couples that work together. Some of my dear friends in a medical facility that I work at, Dr. Alan Peters and Jeannie Peters, and I know all kinds of other couples that work together. One of the things that I really love, and I actually was surprised about on your list, was separate offices. Now, you have the space to do it, and I didn't at first. Now we do. But talk a little bit about why. Have you tried to work together in an office? Talk about that.
Well, Michael conducts business at the top volume of his voice.
It sounds like me.
And The keyboard, he thinks, is still the old-fashioned typewriter, and if he doesn't hit it hard enough, that it's just not going to record that letter that he intended. So I find that personally very disruptive. So, yeah, we've had separate offices as long as I could possibly enable that to happen for that very reason. It's very disruptive for me to be in the same office with him.
Yeah, and me as well, because we started off in an office that was, it was so small. We used to say you had to go outside to change your mind. It was like 7 feet wide and 12 feet long, and we had 3 people in it. But the problem with working in the same office is that not just your significant other, but others in the office, because you're there and it's convenient, will say, hey, do you know how to reset this? Or, hey, what about this? Or, I just heard you say that. Do you really mean to say that? Or you better get back to so-and-so today. And so whether you want to or not, you wind up being disturbed just because there's a convenience there. And when you have a separation, that doesn't happen. The other person can come into your office, but when they do, they usually stand there and wait until you finish what you're doing to ask you, what's up, usually.
So I have a question just about Barefoot was not did not succeed just based. Certainly you guys leading it was the way that success happened. But you needed not only to create a winning team between the two of you, but you needed to create an entire culture of an organization or an organization with a positive culture. How important is it for them to see you together, or was it better to have them see you kind of bump heads every once in a while? What do you think is the best environment when you're going to have, and we can relate this to a family too, because as parents, let's say, how important is it for the two parents to be either on the same page or to conflict so that your family, in your case, your culture, your employees, could see that you guys actually had differences but could still grow a successful organization?
I think that's an excellent question, Doug. Thank you for bringing that up. And I think it's really essential for other people, family or business associates or your employees, to see that you disagree and that that's okay. Because if they get the idea that the only way they're going to succeed in the business, if you're the employer and they're the employee, is to agree with you, you're really not going to learn anything different. They're always going to be intimidated if they've got an idea that might be different than yours. And we definitely don't want that. We need all the good ideas that we can get.
The other thing is that when your people see you disagreeing, they have more credibility for you when you agree. So if Bonnie and Michael are both saying the same thing, and I've seen them disagree with each other before, and now they're not disagreeing and they're adamant, well, then this must be right. So it gives you an awful lot of authority to show some disagreement.
Well, that brings up conflict resolution. So let's talk about, you guys had mentioned, like on this list, unanimous decisions, right? And third-party experts. And in business, that's totally applicable as well as in life. And I love this question, Doug, because it does beg the question of, I would like to see how good, healthy conflict resolution happens with respect. So what was your tools or tactics for conflict resolution if it's something different than third-party experts or waiting, unanimous decisions? What other kind of skills or tools do you think are important, both personally and professionally, to have a disagreement and then be able to show or demonstrate good conflict resolution?
I think pistols at 50 paces is generally a good exercise.
Single shot pistols. There'll be no resolution.
First of all, we start off with respect, okay? And then, whenever possible, if you can just put your ego aside, because it's not who's right and who's wrong, it's how do you get to your goal together, all right? And it's also working with and listening to anybody that has experience in your business. And if it's a family, it's your children as well. So they get the idea that their opinion is important and their viewpoint is important, and they have a little bit of experience about how to handle a conflict or a difference of opinion.
The other thing, too, is so many people They don't really listen to the other person. They're already locked and loaded with their response, so they're not listening to the other person. So the other person finishes and then blast them back, right? Wrong. What you really want to do is you want to listen to the other person because you're listening for areas of agreement. Because when the other person is laying down their logic for why they feel this way, you're going to be listening and you're going, oh, I see, we agree on this. Oh, I see, we agree on that. And then you can start to build consensus by going back to those areas where you do agree.
One of the things I saw, again, I'm going to keep coming back to this dinner on Friday night, but I keep coming back to it because there were so many things that I took away from that dinner. What I really respected about the two of you as not only a couple, but as people that have been successful in business and in personal relationship also, is that while you have had much success in the growth of Barefoot Wine and from other businesses that you've put together, me being an expert in the podcasting space, you genuinely were listening to my answers. You could have easily just have rolled over me and just not said out loud, but listen, you guys have been successful with this. You probably don't need any other business in order to go beyond where you are right now. You could just, ride on the success wave that you have with Barefoot. But what I thought was so refreshing, and I know that, and I read this in your book, is that you listen to the people that are within your organization. You've listened to the maintenance guy and to the loading dock guy and to your assistants in helping you grow your business. Similar to a family listening to their kids, really hear what they have to say because you want to help them learn. You want to teach them lessons. So I guess I want to emphasize that and just applaud you for that, but maybe share a little bit of your philosophy on why that was essential for you in order to become successful at growing your business, because that's where really I focused on what you've done so well.
Well, our philosophy was we started with no knowledge of our industry whatsoever, so we'd better get some information from somebody who's been there and done that. And because Michael and I are both kind of A-type personalities, and we also are leaders just naturally, so we don't work for somebody else very well. We have to work for ourselves. We would make up our own minds and decisions about things, but we didn't have any pieces of information in our history, in our background, to use to come to these conclusions. So yes, we had to go out and we asked people, anybody who would be touching our product. So it starts on the bottling line. We talked to the bottling line manager about what he knew about labels. And we were designing our label at the time, and what he had told us was that when the bottle goes from the bottling line into the case, that it can often be scuffed. It can often be torn when it's being put into the case. So if it's got a tear on the label, it's going to look like damaged goods on the shelf. Now, you might not think when you're designing your label for your product, you might not think about these things. But this was his experience from where he was coming from, and this was very valuable information for us. And we would talk to store clerks. It's what we call working with people or becoming friends.
Called making friends with people in low places. These are the people with dirt under their fingernails. But the thing is, when you ask somebody for their opinion on something, most people are gratified. They go, oh, the guy really gives a damn. Look at this. He's respecting me. I'm just a lowly clerk, and he's asking me what sells and what doesn't. And so these folks would, they'd step up to the mic and they'd say, well, from the way I see it, from my perspective, and then they'd give you this piece of jewel, this diamond of information that you're not going to get from the white-collar folks. You're not going to get from any college classroom. The Six Sigmas at Stanford are not going to tell you. Okay, you're going to find out from some guy who's a clerk or somebody who's a receptionist or somebody who's doing some job that others might think is menial, but they do so much of it and they see so much of it going by. Truck drivers, forklift drivers, that's what made Barefoot great. We took their advice.
Well, it sounds like it's what makes you great as a couple as well, because you're not you're not deciding that you, even though you've had so much success, that you know it all. Like there's so much to be known and learned and so many different angles. And again, starting a business, you knew nothing about the industry. And then being able to be successful at it also says, well, if I take that approach in life, that's probably going to work for me. If I'm open to learning new things all the time about everything, well, that can only prove to be successful versus being closed or assuming that you know something or following a pattern that maybe hasn't worked in the past. So I think that feels like a real good way, a mantra for life and for being in a couple. What do you think?
Oh, totally. So where I want to really head just for a quick second is that you've taken this experience that you've had with Barefoot Wines and businesses that you've run since then. What happens next? I mean, what happens next? Do you start again and create another empire like you did at Barefoot? What's your goal? What are you hoping to have happen?
Well, we really love sharing the lessons that we learned with business owners. So we're advisors now for companies that are starting off, for entrepreneurs, and for companies that are experiencing the growth pain, okay? And it's a very dangerous time, and we've gone through that, and we love to share the lessons that we learned with others. So that's why we love being advisors.
Yeah, we love working with people, especially young people. They have great ideas, technological breakthroughs and applications of technology, but they lack certain soft skills that are necessary to get the best deals on credit and terms and to make sales happen. Maybe they're not focusing on sales as much as they should because they're so in love with their products. And, they should be in love with their product, but let's face it, we got to pay the bills, guys. So we're coming in, with some of these really classic, I mean, you could call it old school and you can call it, whatever. The fact is they're classic ideas. And so we like, our next chapter is to see how many small businesses can benefit by our experience. And we've already seen several small businesses just rocket ahead because they were able to build on the platform that cost us so much money and so much pain and took us so much time. In other words, we don't want you guys to make the same mistakes we did. And that's our goal at this point in our life.
Okay, so let's say we have some listeners who are interested in that. Where do we send them in order for them to be in touch with you about their product or their idea or their business?
I haven't even, before we even say that though, the idea behind it, I mean, we were walking through the Redwood Forest yesterday, a weekend with Bonnie and Michael, I think that would be a tremendously valuable weekend to share with you and share their knowledge and for you to share the knowledge with these young entrepreneurs that are even older folks, second times transition in next career in their life, the reinvention of them. I mean, to have the experience and the skill set that you guys have to be able to bring it to someone that's starting out in business, what an amazing idea. So yeah, how would people get in touch with you if they want to find out more information about you guys?
www.thebarefootspirit.com. We write articles on there on a weekly basis on our website, and it's all about business, and it's all about the community and how you can work together to benefit, your business and the community at the same time. And we do have executive retreats or couple retreats that we can meet at our home and give you a walk around our lovely nature trail and create a real experience here in the wine country that's not only fun, but it's also very educational. And it's beautiful, and it's in nature. We call it your outdoor classroom in the wine country.
Yeah, we have several groups that come here, and they come from all over the world. And it's just really nice to get away from your familiar environment and get into a new environment, especially a natural environment. And we take a walk and then we sit down and we have a talk and we talk about one subject. And it's very interactive. You can ask questions, whatever. And when you leave, you feel confident. You've got new tools that you can use. Some of our people say, I can't wait to get back to my business and apply this stuff. And to us, that's the ultimate compliment.
And I really want to make sure people understand that you have 2 books, and I want them to get both books. So why don't we talk about the first book that you wrote, which was The Barefoot Spirit?
Yes, The Barefoot Spirit, How Hardship, Hustle, and Heart Built America's #1 wine brand. And that is the story of how we got started in our laundry room, no money and no knowledge of our industry, and built it up to one of the fastest growing wine brands in the nation without paid advertisement. And it's all in story form. It's no prescriptive text, what to do and what not to do. It's just what we did, how we screwed up, and how we learned our lessons along the way. And it's really an entertaining book. It's a New York Times bestseller, and we gave our stories to Rick Cushman, who was the Sacramento Bee food and wine writer for many years, and also an awarded writer. He talks about wine in the same language that we did, was making it friendly and making it fun and talking to the average person. So it's very non-intimidating and a lot of fun stories. So that was our first book.
And the other thing about the first book is it's not a prescriptive text, where you have some patronizing business leader saying, here's the 3 things you got to do, the 8 things to never do, and the 20 things your customer wants from you, and you're snoozing by number 6. So we don't have it like that. We basically just have one little story, then it lasts a couple minutes. Then we have another little story, and then another little story. And so you're listening to these stories, and there is a thread of truth that weaves itself through all these stories. And after a while, you start to say, oh, I see. If you treat people like this, then this is the outcome. If you treat people like that, that is the outcome. And so the whole message of the Barefoot Spirit is how to have that spirit about you and your outlook in business and the 3 basic relationships, which is your employees, your customers, and your vendors. So what do each one of those people need? How do you put yourself in those shoes? And so it's kind of a journey where Michael and Bonnie learned the hard way what the other guy really wants. We go in there thinking, oh, I know what they want. We were wrong. They wanted things that were completely surprise to us. And so when you read the book, your eyes will get opened to, oh my gosh, they don't really want a better widget. Maybe they want something else. So that's our first book, and we're really excited because we're doing a theatrical audio version of that, which will be out in a few months. It's going to be a whole new way to teach business, because the best way to teach business, we think, is through story, and the best way to tell story is through dramatic acting. And so we're looking forward to that. That's coming out in a couple months. And then our other book is called The Entrepreneurial Culture, 23 Ways to Engage and Empower Your People. Now, people today, they're always talking, oh, we want to have a company culture that's progressive, or we want to hire entrepreneurial people. Well, your company has to walk the talk. It's not enough for you to act like entrepreneurship is something outside your company that you bring in. You have to actually practice it. And so this book breaks it down into 23 cut and paste ideas that you can cut out of the book and paste right into your business. So it's kind of like a nice little checklist. Does your business have these things? And I think you'll find it very interesting.
Well, I know when we together, Doug and I were in San Francisco at the C-Suite event, and you did the keynote presentation there. It was his first time seeing you on stage. It was the second time I had met you, and your presentation was amazing, and it was all about this entrepreneurial spirit in your business and how employers can empower employees to be more dedicated to the brand and to the business. That was absolutely brilliant, that so many entrepreneurs who are growing their business need to know about, because they wonder why their employees don't care as much as they do. And these are the steps that can actually help you get there, to turn your employees, to turn your 1099s, to turn your independent contractors into someone who actually cares about the greater vision and feels connected in a different way. So I would absolutely recommend, if you're a business owner or you're part of a business where you know that your employer or your whoever's above you wants to engage people at a different level, to get them or tell them about this book. So you can get that, again, both on Amazon, but you can probably also get it at thebarefootspirit.com.
Absolutely. That's the best place to get it.
Now, for anyone who's listening and let's say they're not in business, they're just fascinated by this whole entire conversation and they're taking notes because they know that even though it may work in business, they see how it can work in life. If you had to give one final recommendation about the best way to stay engaged as a couple with or without a business component to this, what would you say is the most important factor that you think is for all couples across the board?
Maintain a good sense of humor.
Yeah, don't take yourself quite so seriously. You know, I mean, we all have our foibles. You do, your significant other does. And I think, you know, the flip side of that is believe that the other person has your best interests at heart. You know, I mean, let's face it, they're committed. You moved in, right? You're under the same roof, so you've made a commitment already. So if you give them the benefit of the doubt when you have disagreements, I think that you're on the road to progress.
Let me just add something to that. I figured out a long time ago that if you're in a new relationship and, you know, there's things you like about that other person, there's things you don't like about that other person. So let's just take a look at what you don't like about that other person, all right? Are you willing to accept them or are they intolerable? Okay, if they're abusive in some way, that's intolerable and you break off the relationship. That's that. But if they just don't put the toilet seat down or they've got bad table manners, you've got to figure out if you're willing to accept that or not. And if you're willing to accept that, then accept it. Stop complaining about it. So figure out how much of the other guy's BS you're willing to put up with and then put up with it. And do it with humor.
Perfect. I love it.
I just have a final question because we also walk into this environment with, you've been together for 37, how many years?
36.
36 years. I'm sorry. I know you mentioned that before. I apologize for not getting all the facts right, JJ.
Talk about things you have to put up in another partner, that he doesn't take notes. He's not detailed. I love you. I'm just kidding.
I got a lot of this right, and I did not take one note during this entire conversation. So 36 years of relationship, 11 months of a relationship. So is there, between JJ and I, so maybe share, as of the recording of this, by the way, so maybe share some wisdom from a 36 plus year together couple that would help a 1 year couple just move to the second year.
Well, I see that you've got an excellent start because you're both confident in your own skins and in your own knowledge. And you're both willing to learn from the other person and from other people, okay? And you respect and you love each other, and that shows in everything that you do and say. So you've got an excellent start. I'd say just keep it up.
What I'd add to that is what I like to do from a business standpoint, we call it taking inventory, okay? So that's where you take a look at what you've got. And I think a lot of couples tend to look at what they don't have and focus on that instead of what they do have. And then they have a breakup and then they regret it because they go, oh my God, you know, we did have this and we did have that and everything else. So the idea is spend some time, just reviewing the things that you've got, the successes that you've had, the agreements that you've made, the conflicts you've overcome. I think that's really important to moving forward so that you'll build that foundation of trust and the tenacity that it really takes to make a relationship work. It's based on acknowledgement and it's based on validation. So spend some time validating your relationship.
And that's such in true form because whether he meant to or not, as we were hiking in the Redwoods yesterday, Michael said to me, he's a very nice man. He has a lot of good qualities. And he started to validate you to me in our relationship. And I thought, absolutely, I agree. So thank you, Coach Michael. Thank you, Coach Bonnie, for all the words of wisdom today. Today's been amazing. So for those of you that have friends that are couples in business, I would really encourage you to share today's episode because if it's, some couples have the benefit that they need to, like Bonnie had said at the beginning, it's not for everybody. And so people can take their personalities, go to their jobs, and independently and then come home and then have to deal with each other, be with each other, and hopefully identify and live out the best parts of each other when they're in their relationship. But definitely when you go into business together and you're with each other 24/7, it's a whole nother skill set needed. And I think today's show is really important for everyone, not just couples in business, but for all couples. So please, I really encourage you to share today's show. Maybe we'll even put it on the Nice Guys on Business.
Oh, yeah, but we'd have to drop the F-bomb a few more times in the intro. So you and I will do the intro because we don't want to put Michael and Bonnie into that situation where they need to hear that kind of voice. Yeah, if we had the microphone in front of Michael when he said that would have been even better.
And I will say, for those of you, just to get the visual, I should have said this at the beginning, but we'll say it in the intros, that we're all sitting around in robes. We've just had brunch, we've had a mimosa or two, and we're sitting around in robes. So it's been an amazing weekend here with them, and we really appreciate you being on the show, and I can't wait to share all this information to help other couples in business or not really honor and emphasize the best parts of being in a couple.
I love that you guys actually we're having this sit down. Like we spent the weekend. We did exactly what I mean. In my mind, a year ago when we met Michael, I don't think that you were at that C-suite event, Bonnie. But when we met Michael, I'm thinking this is a guy I would really love to spend a weekend with and just kind of hang out with. I did not say that to Michael. I did not even say that to you. And when you guys got together and you talked about the weekend, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. This is the best thing ever. And I feel like to a degree, I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but I feel like we're coming away from this weekend, and I think that you guys actually learned a couple things from us, too.
Oh, you think?
Well, look what you manifested, Doug. All right, so this show will definitely then be on Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, and we're going to have Bonnie and Michael back because I had asked them a question about their business in terms of law of attraction. We had very woo-woo conversation this weekend that I want to share on Spirit, Purpose, and Energy about how you can take the things that happen in your life that you think are going to crush you, that are going to just break you up, they're going to ruin you, and how they're actually a gift to actually move you forward. So we're gonna work on some of those stories and bring them back onto Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. So I hope you tune into that. Thanks for listening.